Okay, let me start off with Ethiopia, and I'll wait for Mr. Bays to take his seat, and then, of course, we've been waiting for 15 minutes now, huh? What? Yeah, okay, no, we're trying to coordinate with them. All right, let me start off on a couple of notes on Ethiopia, which I'm discovering with you. Our humanitarian colleagues are telling us that they and their partners continue to call for the protection of civilians in Tigray, respect for international humanitarian law, and ways to assess needs and ensure that aid continues to reach areas affected by the conflict. Roads to the Tigray region remain blocked, and our partners warn that supplies will soon be exhausted, putting millions at risk of food insecurity and disease. The UN's partners have finalized a humanitarian response preparedness plan targeting 2 million people in the Tigray, Afar and Amhara region between now and next January. The UN resident coordinators and their teams from the Horn of Africa are deeply concerned with the situation in Ethiopia and reiterate the Secretary General's call this month to de-escalate tensions. Our UN teams in 4 countries, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Sudan, and Djibouti, are working with the authorities to address the needs of the most affected people. In Ethiopia, the UN team particularly concerned about the plight of some of the most vulnerable households in Tigray. It's also concerned about the movements of people and the risk this entails for the spread of COVID-19. Since the beginning of the conflict, all systems of surveillance have broken down with lack of communications and access to health facilities. Also related to Ethiopia, our colleagues at the UN Refugee Agency warned today that a full-scale humanitarian crisis is unfolding as thousands of refugees flee ongoing fighting in Tigray every day to seek safety in eastern Sudan. UNHCR says the influx is unseen over the last 2 decades in that part of the country. People have been crossing the border at the rate of about 4,000 per day since November 10th, rapidly overwhelming the humanitarian response on the ground. UNHCR says more than 27,000 have now crossed into Sudan. The UN agencies, along with other partners, are supporting the Sudanese government's response. We are providing clean water, other hygiene support, while the World Food Programme is providing food and high-protein biscuits. UNHCR is calling for more sites to be identified to relocate refugees away from the border and allow them to access aid and services. And ahead of this weekend's virtual G20 summit later this week, the Secretary General has written a letter to all of its members. In this letter, he says that the COVID-19 pandemic has laid bare systemic fragilities in our societies, our global economic systems, and the framework that govern international response, that govern the international system. The Secretary General says the G20's early response was crucial in easing social and economic fallout from the pandemic, but he stresses it now needs to be scaled up in ambition and deliver bolder measures to enable developing countries to address the crisis effectively and to prevent global recession from becoming a global depression. He also notes in the letter that the world needs unprecedented leadership that is united in its quest to respond to this crisis and recover better. He said we will succeed if we cooperate to address the current emergency, stabilize economies, redouble efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, align the recovery of the pandemic with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Paris Agreement on climate change. We've just emailed those letters to you. They're in English, French, and Espanol. The Deputy Secretary General, for her part, is back in Nigeria today. This morning, she met with the Ministers of Women's Affairs, participated in an event to launch the National Situation Room and Data Dashboard for Ending Violence Against Women and Girls in Nigeria. The new program, supported by the UN, introduces an innovative data management and visualization platform which uses technology to enable government, decision makers, and program managers to view and analyze gender-based violence data. Following the launch, Amina Mohammed met with the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 and joined the Nigerian Governors Forum virtually. She had exchanges with ministers of youth and women's affairs, as well as youth leaders and representative of youth organization to explore tangible solution to some of Nigeria's biggest challenges. You will have seen she joined the Secretary General and the Special Envoy on Youth in an event to meet the 2020 class of young leaders for the Sustainable Development Goals. We will keep you updated on her program. And related to West Africa, the UN's humanitarian chief, Mark Lowcock, today allocated $100 million from the UN's Central Emergency Response Fund to help people feed themselves in countries most at risk from the growing hunger due to conflict, economic decline, climate change, and COVID-19. These include Burkina Faso, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Nigeria, also South Sudan, and also Yemen and Afghanistan. Each will receive about $80 million. An extra $20 million has been set aside for anticipatory action to fight hunger in Ethiopia, where droughts could worsen an already fragile situation, as we've been talking about. Our humanitarian colleagues warn that without immediate action, the famine could be a reality in the coming months in part of Burkina Faso, northeast Nigeria, South Sudan, and Yemen. This will be the first time famine has been declared in 2017 in parts of South Sudan. SURF's $80 million cash injection will be distributed via cash and voucher programming, and it will target the most vulnerable, especially women and girls and people with disabilities. And this morning, these members of the Security Council met in person. They held a short open meeting on the situation in Mali. The Security Council then had close consultation on the 1701 report regarding Lebanon. That will be followed by a stakeout by Ambassador Christopher Huxen, permanent representative of Germany to the United Nations. We will try to tell you when that starts. A note from our colleagues at the UN African Union hybrid operation in Darfur. They said today concluded 2 dialogue forums in Khartoum, Jadid, Korgul villages in North Darfur. The aim was to help prevent tensions between farmers and herders during the current harvest season. About 95 participants, including 35 women, attended the 2 forums, which were addressed by community and traditional leaders. Since 2018, UNAMID has initiated similar dialogue forums in collaboration with local leaders, authorities, to bring together the parties. Meanwhile, in South Sudan, the UN mission in the country organized a 3-day forum in Bentiu Unity State to bring together women to foster dialogue on achieving 35% representation at all levels of government and decision-making, as stipulated by the revitalized peace agreement signed by the parties to the conflict in 2018. The forum was organized in collaboration with the UN Development Program, the Institute of Leadership, and the University of Juba. And our friend Stephanie Williams, the acting special representative for Libya, attended a meeting hosted by the Sirte Oil Company in Masra Brega. The meeting brought together the chairman of the National Oil Company and commanders of the Petroleum Facilities Guards of Eastern and Western region. In the meeting, which is the first of its kind, come as part of efforts to unify and restructure the Petroleum Facilities Guard to form a new oil facility protection force, as stipulated by the agreement signed on the ceasefire in Geneva last month. After the meeting, Ms. Williams hailed the dedication of the National Oil Company's employees as they worked tirelessly and under difficult circumstances to ensure the production of oil for the people of Libya. And just want to flag a couple of COVID notes. A new report provides suggestions on how to immediately address the complex health, humanitarian, socioeconomic consequences of COVID-19 while boosting speedy recovery effort. The new research roadmap for COVID-19 recovery encourages targeted research for data-driven responses that focus particularly on the needs of people left behind. In the report, Amina Mohammed, our Deputy Secretary General, says that we have a historic opportunity for change for macroeconomic choices, fiscal policies that are pro-poor and that change people's rights and that places people's rights at the center of the recovery. More information online. And from Sri Lanka, the UN team there, led by resident coordinator Hannah Singer, and its partners are helping to respond to the crisis on the health, socioeconomic, and risk communications fronts. The World Health Organization has provided 100,000 rapid testing kits in nearly 600 hospital beds. It's also helped to renovate 9 local hospitals, boost local capacity, clinical capacity, For its part, the International Organization for Migration is providing testing supplies for the airport, while UNICEF and WHO worked with authorities and local civil society organizations to develop communications campaign in local languages to counter disinformation and prevent the spread of the virus. WFP, UN Population Fund are working together to produce content to combat gender-based violence and highlight the rights of older persons during lockdown. And lastly, in a few minutes, the Secretary General will address by pre-recorded video message the closing of the annual Internet Governance Forum, and he is expected to highlight how digital technologies have become essential during the pandemic, helping many people continue doing their jobs. However, the digital divide means that those without access to digital technology, that's almost half the world, are denied opportunities to study, communicate, trade, shop, work, and participate in much of modern life. The Secretary General will stress the need to put digital technology to work for those who need it most, the vulnerable, the marginalized, those who are living in poverty, people suffering from discrimination of all kinds, and will urge governments to make their responses and recovery plans include increased digital connectivity in a way that is affordable, safe, and inclusive. You've heard me, I hear you. James.
Yeah, so first, with regard to Libya, the Secretary-General's report on Libya to the Security Council has not been delivered. Can you tell me what the situation is there?
We've asked for just a slight extension on our homework. There obviously things are moving, and we want to be as up-to-date as possible.
With regard to Ethiopia, reports that the Ethiopian contingent in Somalia have now been withdrawn so that they can potentially fight in Tigray. What is the UN's response to that, and are you worried that it could further destabilize another country in the region?
I have not seen those reports. That contingent, from what I understand, is under the African Union force. We will check with our colleagues, but obviously we would continue to work for the stability and progress of Somalia. Okay. Let's see if there are any questions. Okay. Any questions on screen? Nope. In person? Excellent. Brendan?
Hi, Stéphane. Sorry, Stéphane, can you hear me?
Perhaps.
Sorry, I have written in the chat, but maybe all attendees isn't picked up by all attendees. I've got two questions, if that's okay. One on Lebanon, one on Yemen.
Go ahead.
Thank you. The Security Council had a briefing from Jan Kubiš. It was behind closed doors, of course. But Mr. Kubiš is obviously the SG's envoy. Is there anything that you can share, any live message that he was delivering, and was it about the maritime dispute?
No, it was a report on the Secretary General 1701 report, which, if it is not already, should be out as a public document very soon. But we'll try to see what we can get you. And your question on Yemen?
Yeah, sure. Is it true that the Secretary General and Mr. Griffiths have been speaking to their American interlocutors to try and prevent them or asking them not to designate the Houthis in Yemen as a terrorist organization?
I have no comment on that story. Okay.
But you don't deny it?
You can quote me as saying I have no comment on that story. Mr. Varma? Oh, okay.
Could I quickly do one more on Yemen? What does the SG see as, from this point on, the route forward in terms of securing peace in Yemen? What is the way forward?
Well, the way forward is for the parties to agree on the comprehensive ceasefire, for increased humanitarian access. I mean, this is what Mr. Griffiths has been saying, what Mr. Lowcock has been saying publicly in many fora, including the Security Council. Yes, sir. Mr. Sato.
Thank you, Stéphane. Yesterday, international physicians for the prevention of nuclear war released a statement. It's uphold TPNW, and also stated expectation of the renewed of the New START treaty in upcoming U.S. administration. Does Secretary General's position the same?
Well, I mean, the Secretary General, stands for, and he's working for the total ban on nuclear weapons, and that's how we will be free of nuclear weapons, as he's said. Obviously, what will come in the months ahead, we will have to see. Okay, Carla, and then Brendan is chomping at the bits to come lecture you.
You mentioned the Secretary General supports the total abolition of nuclear weapons. Does he have anything to say about the fact that the 5 nuclear weapon states, well, the P5, are all in violation of Article 6 of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty?
Well, I mean, the Secretary General will continue to work with all member states to work towards his stated goal. Okay, Brendan, there's no escaping now.
Can you hear me?
Sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, this is Mario.
Mario, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Ask a question on the Western Sahara, following up on what you said yesterday. Does the UN have any information of casualties or wounded people during the recent clashes that you told us about?
No, I do not have anything to share with you at this point. Though I know you had asked Mario. You had asked me, I think, about the conversation the Secretary General had with King Mohammed VI of Morocco, and I can tell you that they did speak. They exchanged views on the issue of Gergerat, and as you know, in recent days, the UN, including the Secretary General, of course, has been very much involved in multiple initiatives to avoid an escalation of the situation and to warn against violations of the ceasefire and serious consequences to the status quo. Sorry, and you know what, Mario? This is what happens when I get stuff mid-briefing. I was handed a note on Western Sahara, and I can tell you that our colleagues at the mission continue to receive reports of shots being fired during the night at various locations along the berm. Last night, shots were reported in the areas of the berm adjacent to Smara, that's in the north of the territory, and Awsard in the south. It goes without saying that we continue to urge the parties to take all necessary steps to diffuse tensions. And the Secretary General not only has spoken to the King, but he's spoken to a number of other stakeholders. You're muted, Mario.
Sorry. Do you consider that after all this, the ceasefire is still holding, or it's been broken? And
well, I mean, we don't want to. What is going on right now along the berm has a great risk of de-escalation. It's some of the most serious incidents that we've seen, but it is clearly not too late to pull back and to ensure that the situation does not further escalate. Okay, now I will go.